All right, so we are going to create a new project. In the project, I'm going to walk through some introductory blocks in Scratch and compare them to what we've learned so far in Python. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click Create in the top corner. Make sure you're logged in first before you get started. Maybe I'll go back here, right? Like the Scratch homepage, right? If you're not logged in, make sure to log in so that way your work is saved. All right. If you don't have an account, create one. Always click on Create in the top left corner, and that will create your new project. All right. So I'm going to call this, I'll say Python to Scratch. And the point of this is really just showing in Scratch different things that you would have used in Python and just how the two compare. All right, so Scratch is event-based. This guy, and I'll bring this up here in the top corner. This guy right here, his name is Scratch, the cat. And in Scratch, the programming language, there's different objects that you can move around and make move and do different things, right? And they're called sprites. That's just, I mean, if I wanted to name this, I could name him like Scratch, right? Or I could name him Joe or Bob or Lisa, whatever I wanted to name. So the first thing I want to do is, since Scratch is an event-based programming language here, I'm going to find an event. And when it says when green flag is clicked, I'm going to drag that block out. This is where all your blocks are going to go. Over here on the right, this is your stage. This is where you're going to see the output of your code at the end. So just like we were using REPL before, just like in REPL, and I'll go to REPL so that way we can just compare the two here, right? I think I've got a shortcut right here. All right, so if I wanted to, I don't know, I'll go ahead and click Python, and I'll just say example, today's date, today's the 13th, Friday the 13th, 7/29. So if you remember from using REPL, whenever you click that run button in the top, that runs your program. In Scratch, the green flag is very similar to that and runs your program. Now also in Python, you know, whenever you wanted to write a comment, you would write it with the hashtag symbol, right? Well, in Scratch, the way you do that is you just right click anywhere, and you just click on add comment. And I can just say like run program, right? So the clicking the green flag is just like running your program. So whenever the program is run, right, what do you want to happen? Well, the way you would, let's create a like print statement. A print statement in Python, you know, you could write it as print and then anything inside print. Now in Scratch, instead of using print, you're going to go to the looks drawer, and you can pull out one of two blocks, either say or think. These both do the same thing. I'll drag out both. Watch that. Okay, if I click on into here, make sure they're clicked in. If I click the green flag, I'll move him down a little bit. If I click the green flag, he's going to say hello and then think something. And the difference is just like the say has like, if you look at like the bubbles that pop up here, right? If I run it again, notice this is like a say, and the think has like bubbles leading up to it. And it does it for 2 seconds or however many seconds you want. If you want to change what it says, you can write something in here, right? And then click the green flag. Whatever it is that you want, you can change the amount of time. So this is very similar. And if I right click, I can add a comment, right? This is very similar to like a print statement. We're using the print function, right, in Python. All right, so let's just say I only want to use say. Let's say I don't want think, right? And I can say, hello, my name is Mr. Danza. I'll go ahead and end with a period. I'll zoom out a little bit so that way I can move this over and that will fit. All right, so let's think about like the input function in Python. Whenever you wanted to accept user input, right, you would write the input function in Python. Well, in Scratch, what you would do is you would go down here to where it says sensing and ask, right, ask a question. And then whatever the answer is, I'm going to drag that out because we're going to use that later. Okay, so ask a question and the answer. So I'm going to drag this out, ask what's your name, and wait. Okay, so you can type whatever you want in there. You can say like, how old are you, or whatever you need to. So what's your name? And then I'm going to go ahead and store that name as a variable the same way like if I said like, what's your name, right? Let's say I wanted to store that as a variable, right? And I store name and assign it what's your name here. Whatever the value is, stores in name. So if I wanted to do that, the way I would do that is I'd click on variables, I'd create a variable, and I'm just going to name it name because the user's name is going to go there. Right? And you look on the screen here how it says name and it just says 0 for nothing. You can go ahead and click this in the left corner right here. You can click that and that will get rid of it. So I'm going to set, once I ask the name, I'm going to set not my variable, I'm going to set name to whatever the user's answer was. So once again, this is, I'll add a comment, this is like using the input function, right? And then this over here is I'll just put variable, right? That's how you would create a variable. Click on make a variable. There's one default here that just says my variable that exists, but you can make a new variable just by clicking there. All right, so that's how you would assign the value to a variable. After that, if I wanted to like say something back, right, I could click on looks and I could say something back. If I wanted to say like hello and then say that person's name, right? Normally we would use concatenation to combine the two, right? So if I said like hello, my name is Mr. Danza, right? And then this is a comment. I'm just showing you that's how you make a comment, right? So let's say I want to print back and say like print hi, and then I'll add a space and I'll concatenate it with a plus, and then I'll type in the user's name, right? So if I were to run this, right, it'd say, hello, my name is Mr. Danza, what's your name? And say, I'm gonna say Josh, that's my first name, right? And it says, hi, Josh. Okay. So if I were to do that in Scratch, the way I would do that is you'd have to concatenate hi and then the person's name. So the way I concatenate that together is I go down here to the operators, right? And I want to join together two things. So concatenation is the same as joining two things together. So I'll just drag a join in there. So I'm going to join hi space, and then I'll go ahead and put the variable name. So variable name. So if I run this, right? Hello, my name is Mr. Danza. What's your name? Say Josh. I'll say hi, Josh. Right. So let's say also like, let's say I wanted to add a period at the end here, right? I would have to just add another concatenation symbol, which is a plus here, and then add a period on the end. The way I would do that in Scratch, right, I would just add two joins. So I'd go find my join, which is in operators, and drag this join out here. So now I'm joining three things together. I can say hi space name period. So hi name period, hi name period. See, you're doing the same thing, just using a different programming language here. So if I were to run this, right? Hello, my name is Mr. Danza. What's your name? I'll say Josh. Hi, Josh. Okay, so this is an example of concatenation. All right, let's ask another question here. Let's deal with like numbers. Right, so if I were to ask, I don't know, I'll ask like, how old are you? And wait. Okay, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to make a variable and click on and type in age. All right. Notice that once again, whenever you create a variable, it shows up on the screen here. If you want to hide it, you just click here and it just hides it so it doesn't show up. All right. So set age to whatever the user puts in. So I forgot to drag out this answer thing originally, so I'll drag out the answer. Set age to the answer. So that's the same as writing an input statement. That's like saying like age is assigned the value of whatever you ask. So you can say like, how old are you? All right, that's the same thing. And then it stores it. And then now the difference between like, I don't know, let's say you want to like, the difference between Python and Scratch is that if I tried doing a calculation in Python, remember how we had to go through and we had to make sure we were dealing with integers and we had to convert or cast a input value, a string, to an integer, and then we had to do the calculation and then cast it back to a string in order to present it. Well, in Scratch here, we don't have to do that. In Scratch, it will automatically cast for you, automatically convert to the proper data type. All right, so this is just sort of an introduction to what you would find in Scratch. A lot of these blocks you can go through and try to find, and also Google and find maybe additional blocks that you want to add, but that's kind of the basics of it. And as you see here, both of these programs do the same thing. They're just using different programming languages. So once again, if I run it, hello, my name is Mr. Danza, what's your name? Say like, my wife's name is Stephanie, right? Hi, Stephanie, how old are you? She's 31, and that's it, right? So know that if I wanted to even say something again here, right, I can say like, next year you will be, I should have added join first, I should have concatenated that first. So I'll join this together, right? And I'll say something like, next year you will be, I'm going to do a calculation. I'm going to create a variable and I'll say make a variable and I'll just call it next year because like what your age is going to be. I'll say age next year. And you don't have to add underscores like I am, but that's just what I wanted to call the variable. And let's say I set age next year to, notice I dragged out a plus symbol, right? Notice this plus is not the same thing as a join. I'm going to add things together. So I'm going to add, go to variables, I'm going to say age, age plus 1, right? So that will tell me my age next year. So next year you will be age next year. So if I run this, here's what happens. Hello, my name is Mr. Danza. What's your name? I'll say Stephanie. Right. Hi, Stephanie. How old are you? 30. Next year you will be 31. Gotta add a space there. Right. So that way I'm gonna run it one more time just to make sure I did it right. What's your name? Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. How old are you? 30. Next year you will be 31. All right. And if you wanted to get super technical with it and you wanted to add a period on the end there and say everything else had a period, right? I could just add a join again. And I'll add a period here. And I'll say next year you will be. and it adds a period on the end. Notice I create a new variable and I just said age next year, set it to whatever the age they entered, and just add 1 to it. The way I would do that here is, right, I could create another variable, say age next year, and assign the value to age plus 1. Okay, and then I'll print something out, and I'll say next year you will be, and I'm going to concatenate that with age next year, right? And then I'm going to add a period at the end. Right? So if I run it here, I gotta move this video everywhere. What's your name? Stephanie. How old are you? 30. Oh, that's because I didn't. See, there's the thing. Scratch automatically did it for me. So I'm going to convert this to an integer, right? There's the difference here. Convert to an integer, do the calculation, and then I have to cast it back or convert it back to a string, right? That's basically what it was saying. What's your name? Stephanie. How old are you? 31. Next year you'll be 32. All right, so notice here, this is important to notice, this is what I was kind of talking about before. In Python, well, I guess I'll go to Scratch first, okay? In Scratch, if you just typed in the age and you added 1 to it and you presented it back, no problem. In Python, if you did that, we got an error. You have to say, hey, look, you have to tell, in Python, you have to tell the computer, hey, look, I'm about to send you an integer, and then do the calculation, and then after the calculation's done, you need to print this out as a string, okay? And that's funny, that's how it works, but it's good to try out and use different programming languages because you can sense and see like what differences are, and know that in the AP exam, on the AP exam, some people may have learned all these concepts in JavaScript or in Java or another programming language, right? So comparing Python to Scratch is good in order to see where the concepts relate and what's different. Okay, what's similar and what's different. So that's kind of an intro to Scratch in terms of like looking at what's similar to Python and how to convert things. Really, you have the same program here, right? You have one in Scratch and one in Python that do exactly the same thing.